You check your phone, on average, 96 times a day. That's once every 10 minutes. Let that number sink in. You're not doing it because you're weak or undisciplined. You're doing it because some of the smartest people in the world, with billions of dollars at their disposal, have built a perfect invisible cage designed specifically for your brain. They've studied you, they've mapped your impulses, and they've engineered a system you're not supposed to be able to escape. For years, my job was to get inside a person's head to understand the levers that made them act. What I see in these devices? It's the most effective interrogation I've ever witnessed, and the subject is all of us. We willingly offer up our deepest secrets, our time, our very attention, for nothing more than a fleeting digital illusion. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain. I'm going to show you the psychological architecture of that cage, not to scare you, but to hand you the key. Let's start with the engine of this machine. The variable reward. It's the oldest trick in the book. I once interrogated a mid-level bookie, a guy we'll call Sonny. Sonny wasn't a mastermind, but he understood human nature. He told me, Art, you don't get a guy hooked by letting him win every time. That's boring. You don't get him hooked by making him lose every time. That's just depressing. You hook him with the maybe. That's the secret. The slot machine in your pocket operates on the exact same principle. When you pull down to refresh your feed, you are pulling the lever on a digital slot machine. Will you see a picture of your grandchild, an argument about politics, a video of a cat, a message from a friend? You don't know. That uncertainty, that maybe, is what triggers a dopamine release in your brain. Dopamine isn't the pleasure chemical that's a common misconception. It's the motivation chemical. It's the neurochemical of seeking, of anticipation. It evolved to push our ancestors to hunt and gather, to explore their environment on the chance they might find a berry bush or a water source. It's the chemical that says, do that again. That might be important for your survival. These platforms have hijacked that ancient survival circuit. The little red notification dot? That's not just a color choice. It's a trigger, a visual cue that your brain interprets as a potential reward, a digital berry. Your brain releases a small hit of dopamine before you even open the app, just from seeing the notification. This creates a dopamine feedback loop. See a cue, the red dot, anticipate a reward. What's the notification? Take an action, open the app, get a variable reward, the like, the comment, the message. Rinse and repeat, 96 times a day. Have you ever felt your phone vibrate in your pocket, only to pull it out and see nothing there? That's called a phantom vibration. That's your brain, so conditioned by this loop, creating the cue all by itself. It's begging for the next hit. It's a twitch. This brings us to the currency of this whole operation, your attention. There's a saying in the tech world, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. Your time and your focus are the resources being mined. These companies are in the business of selling your eyeballs to advertisers. The longer they can keep you scrolling, the more ads they can show you, and the more money they make. Every design choice is engineered to that end. The most brilliant and insidious of these is the infinite scroll. Think about how you read a book or a magazine. You get to the end of a page, the end of a chapter. That's a natural stopping point. A moment where your brain can pause and you can consciously decide, do I want to continue? The infinite scroll eliminates that. There is no end. There is no moment of decision. You can just keep scrolling, passively, for hours. It's like a conversation with a person who never pauses to let you speak. Eventually, you just get lulled into submission. They have removed every barrier, every point of friction that might give you an opportunity to escape. They have created a perfectly smooth, endless road, and they've cut your brakes. Now we have to talk about the masterstroke, the social validation cycle, the likes, the comments, the shares. This isn't just about entertainment. This taps into one of the most fundamental human drives we have, the need for belonging and social approval. For millennia, Being ostracized from the tribe meant death. Our brains are hardwired to seek acceptance and avoid rejection at all costs. These platforms have quantified social approval. They've turned it into a number. We've given a machine the power to tell us if we are liked, if we are seen, if we are worthy. I remember a case from early in my career. A young man involved in a counterfeit ring. He was smart, came from a good family. He didn't need the money. During the interrogation, it all came out. He was lonely, desperate. The praise he got from the ringleader for a successful run was the most powerful validation he'd ever felt. He said, "For the first time, I felt like I was good at something, that someone noticed." We are all, in some way, that young man. We post a photo, a thought, a piece of our lives. Then we wait. The little hearts and thumbs ups that trickle in are digital pats on the head. They tell our primitive brain, you are safe. You are part of the tribe. Conversely, when a post gets little to no engagement, it can feel like a genuine social rejection. Have you ever posted something and then deleted it because it didn't get enough likes in the first hour? Be honest. Who were you afraid of disappointing? What does enough even mean? It means you've allowed an algorithm to define your social worth. It's a devastatingly effective control mechanism. So, what do? An interrogation only ends when the subject realizes they hold the power to simply stand up and walk out of the room. You have that power. You don't have to out-willpower the system, you just have to sabotage it. Here are 3 simple counter-interrogation techniques. First, control the environment. Turn off every single notification on your phone that is an IT from a human being sending you a direct message. No buzzes for likes, no pings for comments, nothing. Starve the dopamine loop of its cues. Move your social media apps off your home screen and into a folder on the last page. Make it a conscious effort to open them. Add friction back into the system. Second, drain the trap of its color. Go into your phone's accessibility settings and turn the screen to grayscale. A phone in black and white instantly feels less like a toy and more like a tool. Those bright red notification badges lose all their psychological power. They become just gray. You'd be astonished at how much less alluring the screen becomes. And third, the most important technique, set an intention. Before you unlock your phone, state your purpose out loud. I'm going to check the weather. I'm going to reply to my daughter's text. This simple act forces a moment of mindfulness. It breaks the unconscious habit of just reaching for the device out of boredom or anxiety. You become the one directing your attention, not the algorithm. This isn't about abandoning technology. It's about demoting it from master to servant. Breaking these daily loops is the first step. Next time, we're going to discuss a full dopamine detox. A systematic way to reset your brain's reward circuitry so that you can find joy and engagement in the real world again. But before we get to that, I want to hear your confession. It takes courage to admit you're caught in a trap. In the comments below, tell me which one of these hooks has its claws in you the deepest. Is it the endless scroll, the hunt for likes, the phantom vibrations? Lay it on the table. Acknowledging the design of the cage is the first step to finding the door. There's no judgment here, only the truth. The brain science behind this is fascinating. Your amygdala is the brain's alarm system. It detects threats and triggers the fight-or-flight response. In a state of depression, the amygdala can become hypersensitive and overactive. At the same time, the prefrontal cortex, which acts as the brain's rational brake pedal on emotional outbursts, is underactive. You have a hair trigger alarm system with faulty brakes. This is a recipe for constant agitation. The person isn't choosing to be difficult. Their brain is stuck in a state of high alert, and their ability to regulate their emotional response is compromised. The next time your loved one snaps, try to take a breath and see past the anger. Instead of reacting with anger yourself, try to de-escalate with empathy. A simple phrase like, "It sounds like you're having a really frustrating day," can sometimes be enough to lower the shield, even just for a moment, and see the person who is struggling behind it. Let's discuss a symptom that is often accepted as an inevitable part of getting older: significant changes in sleep patterns. We have a tendency to normalize sleep disturbances in seniors. We might say, "Of course, mom is tired, she's 82, or dad has always been an early bird, now he's just up before the sun." But I urge you to look at any significant change from their lifelong baseline as a potential clue. Depression doesn't just disrupt the mind during waking hours, it wages a silent war throughout the night. This can manifest in two opposite ways: insomnia, the inability to sleep, or hypersomnia, the compulsion to sleep too much. For some, it's the agony of lying awake at 3 in the morning, their mind racing with a loop of anxious thoughts and regrets. For others, it's the opposite: a retreat into sleep, spending 10, 12, even 14 hours in bed, yet never feeling rested. I once treated a patient named Eleanor. Her husband was deeply concerned. Eleanor had been a woman of routine, up at 6 a.m. every day to tend to her magnificent rose garden. But over the last 6 months, her husband explained, she had started sleeping until 9, then 10. She would get up for a few hours, eat a little, and then retreat to her armchair for a long nap. She was logging more sleep than ever, but complained of a bone-deep exhaustion she couldn't shake. Her bed, her husband realized, had become a sanctuary, an escape from the pain of being awake. The world had lost its color, and sleep was the only refuge she had from the flat, gray landscape of her depression. Our bodies are governed by elegant internal clocks called circadian rhythms. One of the most important hormones in this rhythm is cortisol. Ideally, your cortisol levels are highest in the morning, giving you the natural burst of energy to wake up and start your day, and they gradually taper off to their lowest point at night, allowing you to fall asleep. Depression throws a wrench in this system. The rhythm can become completely dysregulated. Many people with depression experience high levels of cortisol at night, leading to that awful tired but wired state of insomnia. Their body is exhausted, but their brain is on high alert and refuses to shut down. For others, like Eleanor, the sheer neurochemical and emotional exhaustion of depression is so profound that the brain essentially tries to go into a low-power mode. This oversleeping, or hypersomnia, isn't restorative. It's a heavy, unrefreshing state that's less about rest and more about withdrawal from life. If you notice a stark change in sleep, whether it's too little or too much, see it not as a standalone problem, but as a potential symptom of a deeper struggle. This leads us directly to the next hidden sign, which often happens in tandem with sleep changes: social withdrawal. This is another one that's easy to explain away. He's just enjoying his peace and quiet. She's slowing down and doesn't have the energy for her bridge club anymore. And while a desire for more quiet time can be a natural part of aging, a distinct change from a person's established social patterns is a serious warning sign. It's the person who loved their weekly bowling league who now makes excuses not to go. It is the grandmother who cherished Sunday dinners with the family who now says she's too tired or not feeling up to it week after week. This isn't about introversion, it's about isolation. I remember David, a retired history teacher whose daughter was worried. He had always been the life of the party, a man with a booming laugh who held court at his weekly coffee clatch with other retired teachers. But his daughter noticed the phone calls from his friends had started to dwindle. When she asked him about it, he became defensive. "I'm just tired of all the gossip," he'd say. "I don't have anything to say to them anymore." The truth was, the effort of performing, of putting on a happy face and engaging in conversation had become excruciating for him. Depression creates a heavy cognitive load. Socializing requires you to listen, process, read non-verbal cues, formulate responses. It's incredibly complex work for the brain. When your brain is already struggling under the weight of depression, this work feels like running a marathon. Furthermore, depression often whispers toxic lies in a person's ear. It tells them they are a burden. It tells them that no one really wants to see them. It tells them they have nothing of value to contribute. To protect themselves from the perceived judgment of others, and to protect others from their own bad mood, they pull away. They build a fortress of solitude around themselves, but it's a fortress that becomes a prison. The isolation that their depression craves is the very thing that feeds it, creating a dangerous, self-perpetuating cycle. So if you see your loved one systematically cutting social ties, don't just accept their excuses at face value. Don't try to force them into a loud party which can be overwhelming. Instead, try to lower the barrier to connection. Show up with a cup of coffee for a quiet 10-minute chat. Bring over a photo album to look through. The goal is not to force them to be social, it's to gently remind them that they are not alone, that they are loved, and that someone is willing to sit with them in the quiet inside their fortress. Finally, I want to talk about a hidden sign that often causes the most fear and anxiety for both seniors and their families. A noticeable decline in cognitive function, or what many describe as brain fog. This can be terrifying because its symptoms can closely mimic the early stages of dementia. The person might struggle to find the right word, forget appointments, or have trouble following the plot of a television show. They may find that simple decisions, like what to buy at the grocery store, feel completely overwhelming. They might complain that their mind feels sluggish or full of cotton. The immediate fear for everyone involved is Alzheimer's. And while any cognitive change absolutely warrants a thorough medical evaluation, it is critical to know that depression can, and often does, cause these exact same symptoms. In medicine, we even have a term for it: pseudo-dementia. I'll never forget a patient named Helen. Her son brought her in, and he was visibly distressed. Helen was 80, sharp as a tack, and legendary in her family for completing the Sunday crossword puzzle in ink. But lately, she had become forgetful. She'd missed a grandson's birthday and had paid the same bill twice. She told me with tears in her eyes, "Doctor, my mind is going. I feel like I'm disappearing." Her son was convinced it was the beginning of a long goodbye. But as we talked, and after we ran tests that showed no physiological signs of dementia, a different story emerged. Helen's husband of 60 years had recently suffered a serious fall, and the constant worry and stress of being his primary caregiver had taken a tremendous toll. She wasn't sleeping, she had lost interest in her garden, and she felt a pervasive sense of hopelessness. Her cognitive issues were not due to a dying brain, they were the result of a mind completely exhausted and overloaded by depression. Let me explain the science in a way that might help. Think of your brain as a high-performance computer. Dementia, like Alzheimer's, is like a failing hard drive. The core files are becoming corrupted, damaged, or deleted. The information is permanently lost. The brain fog of depression is different. It's more like trying to run 100 demanding software programs all at once on that same computer. Your brain is dedicating so much of its processing power to managing the emotional pain, the anxiety, and the neurochemical imbalance of depression that there's very little bandwidth left for other tasks. Functions like short-term memory recall, concentration, and executive decision-making slow to a crawl. The computer gets sluggish, it freezes, it can't find the file you're looking for. But the critical difference is this: the file is still there. The hard drive is intact. When you begin to treat the depression, when you start closing those extra energy-draining programs, the computer's performance and speed can return to normal. For Helen, as we treated her depression with therapy and medication, her brain fog began to lift. A few months later, she brought me a completed crossword puzzle. The real Helen hadn't disappeared at all. She had just been obscured by the fog. So, as we close, let's quickly recap these masters of disguise. We've talked about unexplained physical aches and pains, a loss of interest in personal appearance, increased irritability and anger, dramatic changes in sleep, social withdrawal, and this frightening cognitive fog. If any of this has resonated with you today, either for yourself or for someone you love, please hear this. You are not alone, and this is not a sign of personal failure or weakness. It is a sign of a real, treatable medical condition. The most courageous thing you can do is to acknowledge it. The good news, and I truly mean this, is that depression in older adults is highly treatable. There is so much hope for recovery, for regaining joy, and for feeling like yourself again. Your first and most important step is to start a conversation. Talk to your family doctor, a geriatrician, or a mental health professional. Write down the changes you've noticed. Not just Dad seems sad, but Dad has stopped going to his coffee club and is complaining about back pain that the X-rays science explain. Be specific. Be an advocate. You have the power to change the course of this story. Don't dismiss these signs as just getting old. They are not. They are signals that help is needed. Please make that call. Thank you for spending this time with me. Be well and be kind to yourself and to those you love.